Hello, Mrs. Diddley here again. Welcome to our reading lesson. This week we are learning the skill of sequencing. That means putting words in the story in the right order. First, we're going to look at our tricky word spelling, and then we'll look at some of the vocabulary in the text, some of the words. We're then going to read the story, and you can help me with that. And then finally, we'll put some story actions to the story. Now, before we start, you're going to need a pen and paper or an exercise book or a pencil. Pause the video now and go and get it if you need it. Are you ready? In the last lesson, we looked at some of the tricky words from the text. I want to see if you can write those on your own now. Are you ready? I'm going to say the word and you can write it. If you need a little bit of extra time, you can pause the video between the words. Are you ready? Here's some of the phase 2 words. These are the words that were in the text, remember? The first word, to. Into. The. Should we go on to the phase 3 words? Remember, if you need extra time, pause the video. Here's the phase 3 words that are in the text. Was. She. Her. Ooh, now we've got some trickier words. These are the phase 4 words. You might need a little bit of help with these ones. Are you ready? There. There was a big cake. There. Out. I went out. Now, if you're feeling very, very clever, you might try the phase 5 word. Are you ready? Here's the tricky word. Called. I called my mum. Called. Here are those words. Did you get them right? Give yourself a tick for each word that you got right. You can pause the video if you need to. How did you do? Now, shall we look at some of the vocabulary in the story, in the text? Some of the words. Here's some of the vocabulary from the text. Shall we read them together? Early. The next one says basket. The third word is house. And finally, grandma. Oh, early. Early one morning. Basket. She had a basket full of food. House. She got to her grandma's house. Oh, and the last one is grandma. Now, we all know how to say it, shout it, whisper it and clap it. But act it? I think we need to put some actions to these words. Let's think about some actions for these words. The first word was early. What could we do? I know what I do early in the morning. Early. Should we do that one? You do it with me. Early. How good stretch. That's a good one. Basket. Well, Little Red Riding Hood holds her basket, doesn't she? Hold your basket. Basket. Can you say it with me? Basket. The third word was house. I know. House. And finally, the word was grandma. How would you act out grandma? Ooh, my grandma's really old. Grandma. I bet yours isn't that old, is she? Can you do that? Grandma. Let's do the activity together. Here are the words again. Remember, we're going to say the word, shout the word, whisper the word, clap it, and act it with the new actions we've just put together. I'll do it first and then you can copy me. Are you ready? Oh, see if you can point to each word when you say it. Here we go. Early. 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 Are you ready for the next word? Point to basket. 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 Here's the next word. Oh, what does it say? Oh, that's right. House. 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 And finally, our last word. Can you remember what it says? Point to the word. Grandma. 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 Ooh, grandma. Well done. Now, let's read the story again. You can follow along with your finger. Are you ready? Once upon a time, there was a girl called Little Red Riding Hood who lived in a forest. Early one morning, she went to see her grandma. She had a basket full of food. First, she went into the forest. Next, she went down the path. After that, she went up the hill. Finally, she got to her grandma's house. Knock, knock, knock. She went into the house and went upstairs. Grandma did not look right. She had big eyes. She had big ears. She had big teeth. It was not Grandma. It was the wolf. Suddenly, the wolf jumped out of bed and ran after Little Red Riding Hood. Luckily, a woodcutter ran in and shouted at the wolf. The wolf ran off into the forest. Little Red Riding Hood and her grandma lived happily ever after. I don't know if you saw, but some of those words in the text were red. We're going to put some storytelling actions to those words. Now, the first one was Once Upon a Time. Can you remember what that was? Open a book. Once upon a time. Can you do it? Once upon a time. Say the words as you do it. Once upon a time. Well done. The next word I want you to do is who. Who. Wiggle your finger round and round, and say the word who. Oh, this one we already know, don't we? Early. Early one morning. Can you remember the action we did earlier for that? Early one morning. Say the words. Early one morning. Now, we know these ones. There's first. Can you remember? First. Next. Next. You do it. Next. After that. Oh, what was that one? I remember. After that. And finally. Finally. Can you do it? Remember to say the words as you do it. Finally. Here's one you might not know. This word is suddenly. Are you ready for the action? Suddenly. Can you do it with me? Suddenly. It's like you're jumping out from somewhere to surprise somebody or scare somebody. You ready? Suddenly. Well done. The next one is luckily. Oh, this is easy. Luckily. You do it. Luckily. And right at the end of the story, Little Red Riding Hood and her grandma lived happily ever after. We can close the book then. Happily ever after. Can you say the words with me? Happily ever after. Well done. Let's see if we can put those words and actions back into the story. You can join in too. Oh, and remember those words we did earlier, the vocabulary? We put actions to those, didn't we? Like grandma and house and basket. We could put those in our story too, couldn't we? Are you ready? Okay, here we go. Once upon a time, there was a girl called Little Red Riding Hood who lived in a forest. Early one morning, she went to see her grandma. She had a basket full of food. First, she went into the forest. Next, she went down the path. After that, she went up the hill. Finally, she got to her grandma's house. Knock. Ooh, I could put an action in there as well. Knock, knock, knock. She went into the house and went upstairs. Grandma did not look right. She had big eyes. She had big ears. She had big teeth. It was not Grandma. It was the wolf. Suddenly, the wolf jumped out of bed and ran after Little Red Riding Hood. Luckily, a woodcutter ran in and shouted at the wolf. The wolf ran off into the forest. Little Red Riding Hood and her grandma lived happily ever after. Did you enjoy that? Perhaps you could have a go. I'm going to put the text back up and you can read the text with the story actions that we've just done. The text is only on for a little bit, so you'll have to pause the video and then move on to the next page for the second part of the story. Have a go. Are you ready for today's story? It's another traditional tale. I wonder if it starts once upon a time. Today we're going to start the story Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Once upon a time there were 3 bears. They lived in a little house in a big wood. Hello. 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 There was a great big Daddy Bear. I'm big. Then there was a middle-sized Mummy Bear. I'm middle-sized. And there was a tiny little bear. I'm just little. One day, Mummy Bear made porridge. She put some in a great big bowl. She put some in a middle-sized bowl. And she put some in a tiny little bowl. The porridge was too hot to eat. The three bears went for a walk while it cooled down. Not far away, a little girl was also walking in the big wood. The little girl had golden hair. She was called Goldilocks. Soon Goldilocks found the house of the three bears. The door was wide open. Is anyone there? Goldilocks walked right into the house. She saw the bowls of porridge. She tasted some from the great big bowl. It was too salty. Yuck, too salty. She tasted some from the middle-sized bowl. It was too sweet. She tasted some from the tiny little bowl. It was just right. Goldilocks ate it all up. Just right. Then Goldilocks saw 3 chairs. She sat in the great big chair. It was too high. Too high. She sat in the middle-sized chair. It was too low. Too low. She sat in the tiny little chair. It was just right. Just right. Hey! Oh no. It wasn't. Goldilocks was too heavy. The tiny little chair broke into pieces. Crack! Next, Goldilocks went upstairs. She lay on the great big bed. It was too hard. Too hard. She lay on the middle-sized bed. It was too soft. She lay on the tiny little bed. It was just right, and Goldilocks fell asleep. Soon the 3 bears came home. Oh, I wonder what's going to happen. Who's been eating my porridge? Asked Daddy Bear with a great big voice. Who's been eating my porridge? Asked Mummy Bear in a middle-sized voice. Who's been eating my porridge and eaten it all up? Asked Baby Bear in a tiny little voice. Hey, mine's all gone. Then the 3 bears saw their chairs. Who's been sitting in my chair? Asked Daddy Bear in a great big voice. Who's been sitting in my chair? Asked Mummy Bear in a middle-sized voice. Who's been sitting in my chair and broken it? Asked Baby Bear in a tiny little voice. Who's broken my chair? Then the 3 bears went upstairs. Who's been sleeping in my bed? Asked Daddy Bear in a great big voice. Who's been sleeping in my bed? Asked Mummy Bear in a middle-sized voice. Who's been sleeping in my bed? Asked Baby Bear in a tiny little voice. And she's still here. Who is this? Just then, Goldilocks woke up. When she saw the 3 bears, she was scared. Goldilocks jumped up and rushed down the stairs. Then she ran out of the house. The 3 bears did not see Goldilocks ever again. Well, really. What a silly girl. And don't come back. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Thanks for joining in with today's reading lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. Come back tomorrow and we'll do some more fun activities and we'll have another story too. See you soon.